Welcome everyone to CivilNet. Today we're joined by Eisaian, CEO at Cognaize, a technology company focused on the financial industry. Al, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Can you just tell us more about Cognaize, what it is that exactly you do?
Cognaize is focused on extracting key information from very, very complex and large documents, unstructured documents, what we call unstructured documents. So today, how organizations are able to get the key information to then leverage for decision-making purposes is through people. Is through human beings reading it and extracting information and putting it in another spreadsheet or what have you. So our AI capabilities allows us to automate that process. So the general field overall is called document AI or automation of documents, document automation. And as you can imagine, almost everything that we do in the modern financial industry has lots of complex documents that have to be leveraged, and they're not all coming from the same place, same company, to then be able to make decisions, such as, let's say, your loan approval. How rapidly do you process a loan, or how rapidly do you extract information to say whether a company is in compliance or not in compliance? So that's generally what Cognaize focuses on.
So I understand that Cognaize is not your first rodeo, let's say. Mm-hmm. You are a serial entrepreneur with decades of experience, particularly in tech, and you were really one of the first people to come into Armenia and into the tech space here. So I'm wondering, how has the tech scene evolved over the years? And in your view, where is it going in Armenia?
Yeah, I think when we first were coming, of course, like a couple of decades back, the internet was a problem. As a matter of fact, my first company, how we transported code wasn't through the internet. I literally put people on airplanes to go back and forth with, code in hard drives because the internet was so expensive. And then after the monopoly was broken with regards to telecom and just internet in general, of course, it opened up the space. But most importantly, what I saw, I'm not from here, but what I saw in my first couple of visits was that there's an incredible, level of creativity and depth with regards to technology that enables us or empowers us as entrepreneurs to look at Armenia as a location to start companies. How it's evolved, it's incredible. I think the startup scene was non-existent until like 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago. Whatever companies that did exist were primarily started by diasporan Armenians or even non-Armenians outside, and then they leveraged people here to kind of build products and move things forward. About 10, actually I know the exact date. On November 3rd of 2011, I did a event at the Chess Academy. We called it Yerevan Startup Mixer. And we had about 120 people show up, and I did this workshop, all day long workshop that shared with the community here the merits of starting companies, the merits of teamwork. And within that day even, several startups were formed, or people that didn't know each other, that they met each other. So I think that the culture started changing about 10, 12 years ago. Now I'm proud to say that there's a lot of indigenous Armenian companies, and you know them all, PixArt, Crisp, Super Annotate, Cognaize, a bunch of companies that were just started from here, looking at opportunities that exist globally. And I think that mindset shift really is encouraging, because now what you're seeing is that people are not, they don't feel themselves isolated. One of the great things about the internet is that you can access education, you can access contacts, you can access capital, you can access everything that you need to express your creativity through startups. So this was a dream, like 20 years ago when myself and several of my friends started the Armenian High Tech Council, and we were like, wow, it's going to take a long time, but it did happen. And I always go back and I've kind of coined it as follows: the urgency of making lifetime commitments.
What do you mean by that?
It's really important to not be short-term oriented, because things are hard by nature, right? I mean, it's a lot of people. I mean, imagine you going to another country. Forget about like being a diaspora and coming to Armenia. Imagine you're going to an emerging economy. Let's say you're going to Montenegro, or you're going to Laos, or I don't know. You name the. Or you're going to Rwanda, right? You're trying to bring your form of thinking, business building capability, and all that stuff to that country. It's going to take some time, because what you're doing is you're simultaneously bringing something new, bringing a mindset, and teaching, and you bring the seeds with you and the soil with you to kind of get that thing going. And I think lifetime commitments are very important. Like I did in 1999, I made a 40-year commitment. I said, I'm coming to this country every year, and I'm gonna do everything that I can do to bring myself, my contacts, my know-how to have a positive impact on the country. And I think that those types of commitments come from the heart. They don't come from the head, right?
Well, speaking of that, I also wanted to ask, I understand you just attended this year's Armenian Society of Fellows conference in the town of Dilijan in northern Armenia. The conference brought together hundreds of scholars and business leaders to discuss ways to develop Armenia's education and research potential. What else can you tell us about that?
So not only did I attend, I'm the chairman of the Patron Society, which is the part of Armenian Society of Fellows that focuses on fundraising and making sure that all these brilliant ideas with regards to education and research and development are funded. And this was an incredible event. We have 268 members globally, some of the top professors at some of the top universities in the world, Caltech, MIT, Stanford, you name it, and then a lot of people from Armenia. So that interaction between the academics, Armenian academics and some non, because imagine every professor that's outside, every Armenian professor that's outside, also has a network of non-Armenians, right, that we can bring to bear. And that interaction is very important, number one. I mean, in and of itself, the event was an absolute success, because people that didn't know each other, or at least knew each other kind of virtually now, got to meet together. Secondly, it's really around dreaming. It's around imagining together. It's imagining, what in 5 years, right? And the centers of excellence that Armenian Society of Fellows has focused and is focusing its energy on creating around AI, around physics, around chemistry, around autonomy, around governance. These are the five initial institutes. What we want to call institutes or centers of excellence are, if you can think about it, that's society creating, right? If you can think about it, we've got a lot of potential here in our university systems. We have a lot of potential externally, in the diaspora, and then also in institutions that have nothing to do with Armenia, that we can bring to bear. So for me, it was incredible. The other thing is also learning how to talk to each other. Oftentimes, I gave a short talk at the event, and I said, oftentimes we show up, I don't want to say most Armenians, I think most human beings show up with criticisms, right? Show up with, why didn't they cover this, and why didn't they invite that person, and why wasn't I invited, or some. And you have to understand that it's, it's organic, and I always say, take your criticisms and transform them to commitments, to then you transform them to contributions. So if you take criticisms, which is what it means usually, if it's constructive, is that you care about something. Otherwise, you would just be indifferent. You wouldn't say anything, right? But if you take your criticisms and you say, this is something that I'm passionate about, then you turn it into commitment, hopefully a lifetime commitment, hopefully a long-term commitment. then you can actually manifest whatever it is that you're, that you want to create, and transform them in contributions. And I think I witnessed that, throughout the 3-day program.
Well, on that note, thank you again very much for joining us. It was.
If I can make one last comment.
Please do.
Part of these commitments manifesting is also funding. That fundamentally what we're talking about is if we could inspire 1,000 people to commit $5,000 a year for 5 years, that's $25 million of funding that then funds these incredible academics that can go and create new ideas, new knowledge, new impact for the country. And I hope that people will learn more and more about the Armenian Society of Fellows, and will engage. Will try to engage either through their talents or through their financial capabilities. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk about Cognaize, and then also with Armenian Society of Fellows.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. Al, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on CivilNet.